So the other area that you all may be super interested in is, as I alluded to earlier, agentic AI. So what does that mean? By way of background, I want to say in 2000 and came out of university 2004. I was recruited for computer science, but I left it for finance in 2000, like 2 years in. So I could code macros in Excel when I first came out of university, like most analysts need to, but it's been a very, very, very long time since I definitely have never coded C++ for work, right? I did that academically, and I'm saying 2 decades ago. So you all just saw my website. I paid someone to build this. I had logos and whatever. What I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to code without coding. And then I'm going to tell you how much it costs at the end. There's agentic AI is the ability to have LLMs wrapped in a framework where they perform the functions of individuals. The other key area that winds up being not just legal documentation, which is very much unstructured, creative, find me a court case that helps my position, take a look at this document. Do I have the right intellectual property laws set up? Things that may say, or perfectly for you all, please review the most recent United Nations ordinance or issuance, right? It may be 700 pages and go, I operate in this area. What should I know? What should be relevant? Summarize this for me, right? Those are the ways that you can increase not just productivity, but limit expenses, right? So see all of this code behind the scenes. I have not typed any of this. So this is off of the Google stack. I'm creating an iOS, Android, and web app that combs like a vinyl database and comes up with an arbitrage model and so on and so forth. I do this on the side. I don't do this for my career, but it's part of, what actually occurs. So when you take a look at this, so this is the new Synapse Analytics. The first version is like hard coded in another language that you use. This one is not. This one is just me prompting an agent to the side and say, as I look to build products, and here's that Discogs optimizer, it'd be like, can you create the login function for the Synapse Discog? I just optimizer on the Synapse Discog optimizer page. Please make sure to centralize all functionality as appropriate. Please make sure to have a robust error handling framework, right? Let's just do that, and I'll show you what actually happens, right? So this kind of goes in, and down here, you'll see my credits. It'll go through, the agent's going like, okay, how do I do this? Now, behind the scenes, or I don't want to take it away. And I made it act as my CTO, COO, right? I prompted it. You're my CTO, COO, so you care about margin. You care about EBITDA. Do this. You care about revenue growth. So make it pretty and do it cheap, right? Is basically what I'm prompting to do. And you watch this, right? I'm not doing a thing. My hands are here, right? There's nothing going on that I don't know how to load these packages anymore. It's going out and figuring out to get pandas and to do this. It's pulling things in for TypeScript and JSS. It's kind of going through. It's looking at the source code. Hey, they're going to add authentication. He's going to implement subscription status checking because it's going to be a subscription service. We're going to add the proper loads. Like, it's telling me what's going on. Hey, you did this. We updated this page. I'll show you how quick and easy. It looks like it is stuck on the loading screen. And we make sure the entry point is the user email, address, and password password login field prior to any loading. And then I'm literally going to paste the picture that we just took, right? This is the how AI helps in the enterprise. So think of this at scale at Google. That Google comes out and says at this point, almost 50% of their code is written by agentic AI. This is what they mean, right? This is a productivity tool for your technology team in whatever way you can think of it to build whatever it is you're doing faster, right? As it pertains to, it could be your operations, or your website. I have not coded, as I mentioned, in 2 decades, but I'm going to have an app within a month or two. Let me make it even weirder. It only costs $110, 110 US dollars a year for this. Siraj knows I probably would have normally had to hire someone $50,000 just to go through and say, here's a prototype. Right? I'm doing this for like credits and optimizing the credits because I'm prompting the agent to be, you're the CTO. You want the equity valuation to go up just as I do, right? And here's how many shares you have, and tricked it to go, oh, we're going to make this pretty and this and whatever. And yeah, is it full stack? Am I all of a sudden trying to become a full stack engineer out of nowhere? Potentially. But that's the journey I want to go on so that I could eventually coach other people to say, to be in an environment like this and go, think like, I don't know the right answer for you, but let me show you what can be. So that you could, oh, something goes on in your head and go, oh, wow, wait a second. Why do we have a web developer? Like, what do we do? What are we talking about? Like, this is done, I'm telling you, an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
And the other piece I mentioned, and particularly, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is that how to pronounce it?
Yes.
Yes, right? Like, you could, this does the same thing for Python packages. You could be like, hey, what's the most optimal, take a look at the data that I have. What's the most optimal type of learning that we could use here? Like, hey, is it unsupervised? Is it supervised? Is it classify the data? Don't classify the data. I'm not getting into all the different modeling techniques. I want to build an optimization engine so that I know X, Y, or I want to aggregate this at this level, so on and so forth. You know, these are the things that previously you needed, or you would have to go in and write business rules and hand it to someone and go, here's my idea. And we're saying we're taking that whole 200-hour process, shrinking it down to 20. Right. And that's really the exciting part, because in the early stages of your career, in my mind, I would be going, what do I need to hire someone for? What do I need to do? Do I need a human to do the process? Yes or no? The answer more than likely is going to be yes, right? Because it comes down to your time, which is like, no one's ever solved that. There's only 24 hours in a day, although this is in the process of doing it. But that said, say, okay, do I want someone with the tech skills that they could do it this way so that they could be 5 people and build it out, right? That instead of hiring the 5 people in different places and then having a manager, that's more the individual contributor leveraging AI will be more important than the manager managing the people to do the things. That is without question. I mean, it's part of the reason why, if there's anything that the entrepreneurial bug is kicking me too, because it's like, okay, this is great, but I have to travel everywhere to do speeches for my company. It gets tiring. You know what I mean? I can't replicate me publicly, but I can replicate me digitally.
Right.
So, you know, the emails, the responses, that stuff is great, but stuff I have to be on, like I barely write my emails anymore. I've had Grammarly operating to make sure that I don't look at that my lack of proper English acumen and understanding, make sure my emails look pretty for 5 years, right? This is also counts as using generative AI. So I've been kind of powered to do this for some time.
We've played with a few of these tools, including Lovable, Rapid, Claude, and this is the first time that I've seen SoftGen actually. Do you? It looks like you've had a positive experience using it, and do you recommend it?
The only reason I use SoftGen relative to the other ones, because I did the similar list, is because I wanted to build a web app. And the other ones that I took a look at were more, it didn't do it as fast as I could for me to commercialize ultimately something I want in an app store and on a web page. I truly enjoy it. Like, I mean, it's not in the point of where it's production, but the idea of having been in a position like mine, coming from data analytics, 20 plus years in financial services, executive consultant at Ernst & Young, right? I used to tell people about this stuff, but I never did it. I could tell you all day about security and governance controls in your database and how you want to conditionally mask PII information so you don't get fined as it pertains to reporting and this, but I've never done it. right?
Right.
Now I've done it, right? You know, I mean, I haven't
Makes a
done it
massive
myself. It's
difference.
like, and it's
Makes
just
a
like,
massive difference.
whoa, what's
Yeah.
going on here, right? So it was the fastest path for me to be able to feel like I wasn't having imposter syndrome.
Got it.
Plus, I have
Understood.
commercial models. So there are other ones that I'm sure work just as well and operate just as well. Shockingly, I found the Google stack the easiest one to use. I was looking
Oh,
for one that just automated
that sounds
Microsoft
great.
AWS, but like if you're going to build an app, it wasn't enterprise. This was for B2C.
Yeah.
Google's the right way to do it, or you miss the TAM of the Android market,
Yeah.
right? Which is not
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that I'm looking to do because the thing that I'm building, the vinyl optimizer, it's global, and a lot of the vinyl record stores are in London, are in India, are in Japan. So those are not iOS strongholds.
those are Android markets. Yeah.
Yeah, those are Android markets. So like I was like, okay, I can't, having worked backwards on it, I was
Yeah.
like, I should probably do this on Google, which I couldn't believe because Google is known to be like the hardest one
Yeah.
to at least in the enterprise.
Right.
Winds up being the one to use in if you're doing B2C. But I've always operated at, Standard and Poor's, BlackRock. You don't think about
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
because it's just like it's B2C. You're just in AWS land. And this is me using the other part of my brain.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I,
Thanks.
I hope that I wanted to bring some authenticity to it all. And I'm with you. I would, whether it's Lovable, whether, it's Docker plus something else. I have a few others, but there's organizations now, there's private equity firms that are hiring AI consulting companies and saying, use agentic AI to rebuild Workday. I don't need it. Like the death of
Right.
SaaS
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is real. It is real. But
I
that's
mean,
like that, that's not for everyone. That's 20,000 companies could do that.
right.
I've been playing around to build software, and I noticed that for front end, it's quite easy, especially like if it's enterprise, whether it's enterprise or consumer software, it's quite easy for the front end. How are you finding it more of the back end? Because, the back end integration can be sometimes a bit tricky, especially when you want to build more of an enterprise software solution where
All right,
there's more.
you are well read on the subject matter. So fantastic, and kudos to you. What you saw there was me leveraging it because in the background, so the one I didn't show you is this one because what I wanted to do is orchestrate the backends because I wanted to go full stack, just like you were mentioning. So the reason I chose this is that the Google storage. Now remember, I talk about this publicly. Compress your storage. Here's what Snowflake does. We're going to bring all your code to the data. Why wouldn't you have it in a cloud data platform? That's what I do as a day job. But I've never actually loaded or dropped something into Google Storage or Blob Storage or AWS S3, right? I've never dropped it into the buckets. This is the first time I've ever dropped something imported off the web end to drop into the bucket, to write the rules for XML, to go into to test and build the database out. Like these are things that I've never actually done. And this one, assuming you could do it on Google, does do it. That was the catalyst for the selection. So you previously couldn't orchestrate the backend easily, but in short order, you will be able to.
But the funny thing I've just experienced is that when you work with enterprise companies, they are so lazy that because when you orchestrate the back end, because in AWS, data is stored in some funny way that you need to understand AWS very well for you to be able to retrieve some of the data. So when you just build something using AI and it's just basic back-end tables that you can literally pull out into a spreadsheet, I find that it's so easy because enterprise companies are so lazy that they could call you in the middle of the night wanting some data, and if you don't have someone, if the person who understands AWS is not around, sometimes people in the team can't.
That's one of the problems that Snowflake solves, the sharing of data across cloud providers, to your point, right? And Parquet, I think, is the table format that AWS uses. To your point, that's how they build their moats, right? That's how they keep people locked in. Whereas what we're trying to do is to increase our TAM by saying, we being this group here, if you're building software, you want to increase your TAM because you don't want to guess which hyperscaler someone's on, because otherwise you have to like containerize and do all these other things to like deploy and generate revenue. That's one of the things that Snowflake helps solve because it operates across all three and gets you around. There's other ways to share data than from table to table. Like you do Snowflake to Snowflake, and it basically eliminates SFTP APIs. That's like the main use case of it. I just didn't want this to be a Snowflake commercial.
Yeah.
To
It led into
trying
it.
to help you all with what you're doing.
All right, very
So take
cool.
that may actually help you, particularly given your space and the global remit that you have. May be an option for you to look into to help do the things that you're looking to do. It is by far, without question, I'm not saying this just because I work here. If you wanted to increase your TAM as well as have security and governance to sell to enterprise to get through InfoSec,
Yeah.
it's a peer of one, meaning there's, I would advise that whether I worked here or not.